we have one more thing to talk about in this section, and that's the type of storage. We want to break this down into the categories. The reason why we break it down into these categories is because this is where you're looking for evidence. You're looking for DVD, CD, Blu-ray, or secure digital. Secure digital comes in many form factors. DVDs, CDs, and Blu-rays come in a single form factor. You know what they look. I'll take that back. There is a smaller form factor, but it's not often seen. It's called the credit card size CD or DVD, but most of the time we're talking about the standard size platter, so that's easily identifiable. Secure digital comes in all sorts of form factors, as well as compact flash, Zune, and flash memory cards. Actually, not Zune. Flash memory cards and compact flash come in a series of sizes. The easiest way to know about all the different sizes that are out there are to actually choose a USB flash storage converter, and you'll see 12 in 1 or 13 in 1 or 36 in 1. And you'll see all these different slots on it, and that'll tell you what the different available medias are. iPod and Zune are basically single-purpose operating systems. The iPod is more robust than Zune. Zune usually focuses in on music only. iPod started off as music only, and now we've seen that it's grown and grown these days to more than just that. We can also use USB flash drives. That is just a connector for the operating system, but usually what we'll do is we'll connector to the operating system. The USB flash drives are basically a piece of flash memory that is mounted inside of the drive. They come, the largest one that I've seen so far is 128 gigs on a USB drive. Magnetic tape, floppy disk, smart media, memory sticks. I think that centers around Sony technology. You don't see that nearly as much today. Sony's kind of gotten away from their proprietary mix. There is a new file system coming out for storage that is being introduced by Sony, and it's actually going to take Blu-ray technology and bring a bunch of Blu-ray drives all together, or Blu-ray disc, into a single cartridge and slide in for media. So be looking for that as the next big thing that's coming out. And we need to switch gears here and talk about the fact that when you're pulling images, you're going to encounter RAID sets, especially if you're on the server side of things. And I wanted to share with you my way of remembering RAID, because I've had to memorize it for a series of tests that are out there. So I simplified it down to this one slide. In RAID 0, it's inverse fault tolerance. It's a bunch of disks treated as one, and if any drive fails in the set, then it's difficult to retrieve the data unless you're doing it at a physical level. So the operating system won't understand one of those drives out of the set because it's writing across all of them using all of the arms at the same time, writing to all of the different media in a series, treating them like one big huge cylinder, if you will. There's mirroring, where we take two drives and we have exact duplication of information across the two of them. That way, if one drive fails, the other one has all of the exact same data on it. So we can tolerate a failure of one drive out of a pair. When we want to do calculations and we want to get an increased amount of storage space as opposed to the fault tolerance cost, what we do is we use a parity calculation. That parity calculation exists on one drive, and then all the other drives in the sets actually use the RAID controller to calculate this parity, so that any drive in the set that fails can be recalculated using the other drives plus the parity information to give us back that information. Now, that parity is on a single drive at this point. That parity can be generated at the bit level, the byte level, or the block level. The way I remember whether it's 2, 3, or 4 is a very simple calculation. Take a look at my slide here. It looks a little odd. What I did was I crossed out all the B's. If you cross out the B's and you count the number of letters that are left over, 2 letters left over, that's parity on a single drive, that's RAID 2. 3 letters left over, RAID 3. 4 letters left over, RAID 4. That's when the parity is on a single drive. What we do commonly today, by the way, is we don't do 2, 3, and 4. We do 0 if we're insane, because it doesn't do us any good except for make us go faster. Most of the time what we do is mirroring, and if we want to go really fast, what we do is we do mirroring and 0. So we can actually do something, and they'll call it 10, which means that you've got 2 stripe sets that are exactly mirrored. So you can lose one disk out of any set and keep on going. Or we do RAID level 1, that's mirroring between 2 different drives, and that doesn't give us any increase in speed, but it gives us the fault tolerance. Where we focus most of our energy today in enterprise systems is at RAID 5 or above. And in RAID 5, what we do is we say we don't want the uneven wearing of parity on a single drive. So what we will do is we will write the parity across all of the drives as we need to. Now here's the thing. I've seen a diagram out there that shows the 4 drives and the parity being striped across the 4 drives, and then they have a 5th drive that sits off by itself, and it says parity across that whole drive out there. I've seen this diagram pop up a couple of times. That isn't any of these RAIDs. That's not RAID 6. That's not RAID 5. It's a bad diagram. RAID 5 stripes across all of the different drives and doesn't have an extra set of parity off by itself. So if you see a diagram that looks like that and they call it RAID 5, you go, well, there's no substitution for this, so this looks like RAID 5 and okay. But it's not RAID 6, because in RAID 6 what we do is we stripe the parity across all drives, but now what we do is we do 2 different parity stripes across the drive. If you don't like my explanation of RAID and you want something a little bit deeper detailed, go to acnc.com, and they have a little button inside of their site called RAID EDU. But the site is acnc.com, and that will help you to learn a little bit more about RAID and how it works. They have really nice JavaScript diagrams in there. I think that they're elegant. I think this is sufficient for your exam. In the real world, you're going to have to find tools that understand RAID, and we're going to talk about those tools later on. So let's talk about hard disk tools and what to do, okay? You're going to search the text on the hard disk and find files. You're going to find file space, slack space, and unallocated space. You're looking through that to find the evidence that will either connect this person to the ownership of that device or connect the data that is written on that device to a criminal activity and then connect that to them. You're going to find and recover data from files that have been deleted. You're tasked with that, so you have to know the different operating systems and how they do their deletion. You're going to find data in encrypted files, and remember, if you boot to an alternate operating system or you copy this image down and it's encrypted, unless you can figure out what that encryption key is, you're in trouble. So it's nice to check that out as the operating system is running. While the operating system is running, remember that the potential for you to change the evidence and have your evidence kicked out in a court of law is potentially there. But the probative value of that information and the amount of information that you gain by changing that operating system may outweigh the taint on that data that you're presenting to the court. Don't do this as a rookie. Follow somebody else. They'll know, they've been to court, and you can follow their suggestions. There is no manual on this. Now, if you're doing this in a corporate environment and you're trying to figure out about malware and you're not sending anybody to a court, or you're not trying to prosecute anybody, then have at it. Go ahead and wreck the data a little bit under the direction of the forensics investigator who's running this, or your forensics master, as it were. You're going to look for repaired files and allocation tables. You're going to look at partition tables, and you're going to look at boot records. This is your charge when it comes to the hard disk. You can do this physically, or you can do this logically. Sometimes it's better to do one over the other. You have to kind of think that out for yourself. Also, remember, hard disk tools are also going to help us with concatenated and split files, analyze and compare the files, clone the hard disk, and make drive images. You want physical disk duplication tools as well as logical disk duplication tools, because logical goes a lot faster. I wanted to talk about one tool, and this is where we're going to end this lesson, and that's called the sleuth kit for the file systems. Now, if you listen to what the EC Council says, they say go to the command line and use the sleuth kit. No, Command line's great. I love it. But there's an easier way with the Sleuth Kit because the Sleuth Kit comes with a graphical interface called Autopsy. It's open source digital investigation tool for looking at Windows, Linux, and OS X and some of the Unix file variants that are out there. It can analyze the disk, it can do in-depth analysis, and it deals with many of the file systems that you're going to encounter. It is the tool of choice. Now, how am I going to get this tool? Where am I going to get this tool? Well, you can download it and you can build up your own operating system, or you can be smart about this and take what is given to you by other experts that have built up a special purpose operating system designed for forensics. What is that called? It's called the SIFT, and that's the SANS Forensics Toolkit. I think that's what it stands for. Now, the Sleuth Kit is inside the SIF. Where do you get the SIF? With the special built operating system with all of the tools inside of it. You go to SANS.org. Now, you can't just go there and say, hey, I want to do the download. They're going to ask you to register so they can advertise to you and they can convince you to take some of their courses. You'll probably get an advertisement for a course on forensics. Yeah, think about it. Fine. Give them their ability to contact you. I think that's reasonable. And the trade-off for this is you don't have to build your own operating system. You don't have to load and install and do the updates for Autopsy in the Sleuth Kit. It's all built in there along with a couple of hundred other tools that are out there. So I've mentioned SANS before. I really respect the work that they're doing and give them their due. So that's a little bit about the Sleuth Kit, and that's your first toe that you want to dip in. You need to know how VMware works. You need to know how the Sleuth Kit works. You need to know how to install an operating system inside of VMware. And you could do that with probably another virtualization tool or technique that's out there today.